I move that we suspend the rules to allow us to conduct the meeting remotely using the Zoom software system in accordance with the governor's prior directives relating to COVID-19.
Second.
Thank you. Do we need to take a roll call vote for that?
We have to take a roll call.
Okay.
Dara has to unmute herself. Give her 1 second. All right. Well, while Dara's unmuting herself, I will just go ahead and do the roll call real quickly. Alderman Fisk is not present. Alderman Braithwaite. Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Simmons.
Aye.
Alderman Wilson.
Here, thank you.
Alderman Sufferton.
Here.
Alderman Ravel.
Aye.
Alderman Rainey.
Here. Aye.
Alderman Fleming. Mayor Haggerty.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. And next we have public comment. Do we have anyone for public comment?
Yes, we do. We do have public comment. We have 3 individuals for public comment. Mike Kasoko.
Thank you. So we'll give everyone 3 minutes.
Okay. Yeah, I won't need 3 minutes. I just, the last time there was some conversation about elected official compensation, I heard a lot of talk about wanting to raise the numbers much higher than what's shown in the packet. So what's shown in the packet seems reasonable, but what I heard were some aldermen saying, since you haven't had your discussion yet, I don't know what's going to come out of it. But there was conversation in the past about dramatically increasing these salaries significantly, because some people, I guess, see this as a full-time job and want full-time benefits and a lot of other things. But it's not a full-time job. It's not supposed to be a full-time job. It's supposed to be a public service position, and it's supposed to be not entirely without compensation, but that's not the point of the job. It's not, if people want a full-time job, they shouldn't be public servants. They should leave and, choose some other form of career. I'm sure I'm not the only one who thinks some people have been on that council way too long. So my point is, if you have your discussion and the subject of greatly increasing salaries beyond what's shown in the packet, then I would object. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Next is Ms. Betty Esther.
Good evening, Miss Esther. Miss Esther, you have to unmute yourself. Can someone unmute Miss Esther?
There she
There,
goes.
it got it.
Thank you.
Have too many people controlling buttons. Good evening, everybody. I'll talk about the compensation later. What I want to talk about is the reconstruction and that we're talking about with the CDBG committee and handing out care funds and the mental health service. I'm not quite getting exactly what are you meaning? Are you changing? Are you looking at to what you're saying? The way that they've been doing it is wrong. Is there something that came out from HUD that says we are to change the way we are distributing the funds? And why are we going to, and how is the fee for service, although the fee would be on a sliding scale, how do that fit into the service of helping the people that you name in your paper tonight that you say you're supposed to be helping? I don't understand it. Would like to sit down, or well, we can't sit down, although have a long conversation. I guess it has to be with staff and any of the council members that would like to sit in on it, about you changing the way you're doing the funding for the CDBG program and the mental health. Right now, the CDBG money is divided up into sections. That section is, you have 15% of it for administration. That 15% goes to the city for them in managing the funds. Then you have 15% that's supposed to go to the public service people that are the non-for-profit that comes and say, I have this program and I'm helping this particular group and everything. Then the rest of it is to go to individual and service and stuff that is servicing the poor, the people that is under 50% of the area median income. That's why the city got that money, because we have a population that will allow us to have that money, because we have that number of people in the city. But you're changing that, and I'm wondering, are you changing it because the numbers and things that will be coming out in the new census tract is going to say that we are close to not being at that 50% level to keep the CDBG funding? So kind of to give me an understanding why you are changing it and how it's really going to help the people that you're supposed to be reaching.
Thank you, Ms. Esther.
So when do we get an answer to that question?
It will likely come up in discussion. It is item, it's on our agenda. And if your question isn't answered in discussion, then Mayor Haggerty, you said 3. Yeah, if it's not answered there, Ms. Esther, then please reach out for further discussion. Kimberly, who's our final public speaker?
Mr. Ray Freeman is our final speaker.
Good evening, Ray.
Ray, can you unmute yourself, please? *6. *6 to unmute yourself. Ray's on the phone, so I'm going to give him a second.
Okay.
And Alderman Nguyen has joined the committee.
Great.
Oh, and Alderman Fleming as well. So we're just missing Alderman Fisk this evening. Ray, if you can unmute yourself. He's not being responsive.
Okay. Can we unmute him or no? Okay.
Fortunately, it does not allow us to unmute.
We cannot.
Okay. If he pops up before the meeting is over, we'll allow Ray to have this 3 minutes of public comment. Moving on, RM1, I move approval for August 3rd, 2020 minutes.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Are we,
Could I?
please?
Thank you. I would like to actually hold the minutes. They're very long. They're like, I think they're 8 pages long, and I think we've been trying to get away from the extensive narrative on minutes and just kind of get them back to the more traditional minute format. So I would just like to move to hold those until the next meeting, and then we can have those hopefully adjusted a bit. When they're that long, that the struggle I have is we're supposed to make sure that they're all factually correct. Most of the content is not things that I personally said, so I'm not going to be able to remember what other people said so clearly. And the only way to really effectively do that is basically to listen to the meeting again. And I already sat through it for 2 hours. I don't want to have to listen to 2 hours of recording to just kind of fact check all of that. But when we have the more concise version, it's easier to recall the conclusions and summary. So that's my reason.
Is there a second?
I just have a question about that.
Mhm.
So I know we've been talking about that, but then we did talk about, is there like a format for the minutes that we want, so then our staff know exactly how to present the minutes to us, so they're not going back and forth, and they know. I mean, I did also note that these were very long. I kind of skimmed just for my name to see if it seemed correct. But it maybe makes sense for us to have a format that our staff are following, so that minutes are presented the right way, in the right format for each committee.
IML has a good template that we can use, that we can probably institutionalize, that can make sure that formatting of minutes are consistent.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, I was fine passing these because, again, I just skimmed from my own name. And also being that we're in the virtual setting, I thought maybe the longer minutes people would appreciate at this point. But Alderman Wilson, if you want to try to look through them and compare and contrast, going back to the, audit the tape, I don't mind that. I'm not going to put that kind of time in.
No, that's exactly my point. I don't want to have to do that. So I don't think any of us should have to do that. So I think that, if they're just more concise, and then once you have the minutes, if you're, let's say you're a member of the community and you want to see what was talked about that day, you might not want to read 8 pages of stuff, and you can just see, okay, here are the topics. If you want to see the detail, we have these things recorded, so you can go back and see the recording and actually see exactly what was said. So those recordings are available, so we have the detail from the recordings available to the community.
Then I would propose, does it make sense to pass these minutes if you felt like everyone felt like their piece, I guess, was accurate? And then once Ms. Richardson gives us an IML format that we can institutionalize, then our staff aren't doing double work.
You're saying the exact opposite of what I'm saying. I don't want to pass these. I didn't get a chance to go through them carefully. It's 8 pages that I didn't get a chance to go through. I'd be maybe surprised if everybody else had a chance to go through the 8 pages carefully. So I think if we got a more traditional format minutes, it would be easier to see, what was done, and it wouldn't require that level of review going back and looking at exactly what was said. So I just want to hold them to the next meeting so they can be pared down into that format. And as Ms. Richardson said, if we can just, kind of utilize a more standardized template, I think that would be useful for everybody.
I'll second that.
Can we get Alderman Ravel's comment?
Sure. I'd be interested, Kimberly, in seeing what this format looks like. I'm comfortable with us having less detail than in the minutes that we had in our packet today, but I think some detail in our city council minutes, for example, would be helpful, because I don't find the city council minutes to be really very, very meaningful. So I hope there's a happy medium here.
Thank you. So we hear a second from Mayor Haggerty. We're going to get the format from staff and learn more about what we should expect going forward. Do we need to take a roll call on Alderman Wilson's motion?
Yes, it needs a roll call vote.
I'll go ahead and do it. Alderman Braithwaite, Alderman Fisk, absent. Alderman Braithwaite's absent. Alderman Nguyen,
Aye.
Alderman Wilson,
Aye.
Alderman Simmons,
Aye.
Alderman Sufferton,
No.
Alderman Ravel,
Aye.
Alderman Rainey. Yes, I can't hear you.
Aye.
Fleming, Alderman Fleming, and Mayor Haggerty.
Aye.
Great. Motion passes. And now we have some items for consideration. R1, approval of the proposed 2021 City Council meeting schedule.
So moved.
Second.
Mayor Haggerty?
I guess my only question on this is going to be a new city council seated in May of 2021. Is it appropriate for us to approve I'm not sure what the process
Yes.
is, that this council approves the schedule for the whole year, even for that new council?
Yes, sir. This is per the Open Meetings Act requirement. You have to approve the year calendar.
That's all.
It's pretty generic, though. I mean, it's what we do all the time, so it's nothing fancy.
Was there any other discussion? I'm only seeing one screen at a time.
It's the only thing that we always run into is whether a city council meeting is being scheduled during spring break. Now, who knows what spring break is next year because of the pandemic, and if people are really away, then I'm not sure what the school schedule was, but I noticed there was a March 22nd, I think, city council meeting.
Alderman Rainey?
Once we set the meetings, we can always change them. So I think we really need to give people some idea, especially those people who are going to be running for re-election or for election for the first time, to know what the schedule looks like for regular council meetings.
Alderman Nguyen, did you have a comment?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
Thank you, though.
So it has been, do we take an action on this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we have to vote to approve.
Oh. So it's been moved and seconded. We'll take a roll call vote now.
Do I have to name even when they're not here? I don't think so. Alderman Nguyen,
Aye.
Alderman Wilson,
Aye.
Alderman Simmons,
Aye.
Alderman Sufferton,
Aye.
Alderman Ravel,
Aye.
Alderman Rainey,
Aye.
Alderman Fleming,
Aye.
Mayor Haggerty.
Aye.
Meeting schedule passes for city council. Alderman Rainey, will you take R2?
R2 is, let me get back to my agenda. R2 is City of Evanston elected officials compensation. We have a report of the Mayor's Compensation Committee. I move approval.
Second.
Discussion on this?
So are you moving approval of the recommendation not to move forward, or recommendation to move
I'm
forward?
moving approval for the purpose of discussing the idea of elected officials' compensation as it came from the committee.
Okay.
Okay.
Alderman Rainey?
Yes, I have been interested in the way our compensation is determined for quite a while now. And I've tried to attend, at least for the last three compensation committees, many of their meetings. And I'm always taken aback by how little consideration is given to what the council does, and really not only how little consideration is given, but how unaware most of the compensation committees are of our work. So having said that, there is another issue. Aldermen and elected officials statewide are really different from employees. and employees, can do a good or bad job within the year, 2 years, 3 years, every other month, whatever, and be called on it or be rewarded for it. But aldermen have compensation set for 4 years by statute. That's not our idea. That's the Illinois state statute's idea. So we are assigned an amount for compensation, and we have that same compensation for 4 years, no matter what kind of a job we're doing. The only people who decide whether or not we should, get a different salary is every 4 years we get, there's an election. I consider, as does most human resource institutions or organizations, consider benefits, vacation, et cetera, all as part of compensation. For many years, beginning when I was an early feminist, way back when, the issue of equal pay for equal work was always foremost on my mind. I do not believe for 1 minute that the city of Evanston would hire a man and a woman or a Latino and a white man and for the same exact job and pay them 2 different rates of pay. That there would be a lawsuit, that would not even be conscionable for the city of Evanston. However, the city of Evanston has 9 aldermen, and those 9 aldermen each year make anywhere from they make different pay. There's a different pay scale because the compensation includes insurance. There's a discriminatory practice, and it's only discriminatory because it's either or. You either are a single paid insurance person or you have family, spouse and family. So those of us, and it could be anybody, could be man, woman, black, white, brown, who happen to be single, are compensated by the taxpayers every year up to, $20,000 in some case, $17,000, less than others. And how we as a council can look at that and say, that's equal pay for equal work. We should be receiving equal pay for equal work. The compensation committee this year stripped our family covered aldermen of that additional insurance in terms of the recommendation. I fought against that. I said that how can you dare bring people down in order to make it equal? Well, they felt that with COVID and our budget constraints, no alderman should receive anything more than individual insurance. I totally object to that. However, what I do think is the answer to the equal pay for equal work issue is we all get the same amount and all aldermen are able to purchase insurance with that, and that we should all get what the top alderman is receiving. Aldermen are receiving up to $37,000+ a year. That includes their their benefit compensation. That's wrong. That is really wrong. We should all get the same pay, and we should be free to buy insurance from the city of Evanston or from anybody we want with that money. And that is my argument, that it is just not there. There's no way you can justify paying some aldermen $16,000 and some aldermen $37,000 a year. And that's what happens on the city of Evanston. And that is my argument. I want everybody to have all the insurance they need, and I think the city should do most of the compensating for that insurance. But I think that it should be done by allowing us as adults to take that compensation and purchase insurance at the city or elsewhere. And that's all. I have nothing more to add. And I did send, I did send 2 attachments late today. I'm sorry about that. I can understand why those who get more compensation, don't want to give that up. I don't want you to give that up. I don't want you to give that up. However, there's just nothing equal about the way we're being treated. Equal pay for equal work. It used to be something people would strive for. And I am shocked to hear people come on either citizen comment or send letters to the editor saying, how dare an alderman want to make equal pay? I mean, it used to be a very high priority in human resources, and it doesn't seem to wax when it comes to aldermanic salaries. And I think it should.
Thank you, Alderman Rainey. Alderman Wilson?
Thank you. I agree with Alderman Rainey. I think this is also a more transparent way to do it. So if it's just the set number, if you took the whatever the compensation amount and the insurance cost, and just made that the amount of the compensation, and we could choose to get the coverage that we choose from that pool of money. That's up to each individual person and their certain circumstances and needs, but it would be fair because that way everybody's getting the same thing. And I think it would also be, again, back to the transparency point, we'll talk about, we get X dollars plus insurance, but this way, it's clear what we're actually getting for, the total compensation. So I support what Alderman Rainey was suggesting.
Thank you, Alderman Wilson. Alderman Nguyen?
Oh, so can Alderman Wilson and Alderman Rainey then explain to me exactly how that would work? So for instance, in the next council, someone is elected who has 4 children, 5 children, and then what would their compensation be if they wanted to get the insurance through the city?
So the compensation is X dollars. So I think the top tier was, I'm not looking at it, I think it was about
37.8.
Okay, so 37.8. So everybody would get 37.8, and if you wanted to get your insurance, it comes out of that. So the city opens the plan up to you. I suppose we have to run this by HR and make sure it's like legal, but assuming it is, then you just pay for your insurance out of that. So it's the set amount of compensation, and you just have the option to buy the insurance through the plan.
Right. And so then some people could choose not to buy,
Right.
or look for some other type of insurance if possible.
Right.
Okay. And then, so how does that apply? So that goes across the board. I just want to walk through this. That applies across the board, whether or not you're someone who would have, that newly elected alderman is someone who has health insurance through some other entity.
Well, then you wouldn't buy the insurance and you just keep the money.
Got it. Okay.
But for years, most everybody takes the insurance.
Right.
Yeah, almost everybody is.
Mm-hmm. Alderman Fleming?
Yeah, and I guess my only question is, and this comes back, was, so right now, like I make the 37,000 because I have a family of 4 on my insurance plan. So the city puts in the 20,000. So just wanted to make sure we're setting this up so that, whoever else comes in the future, if I get the extra payment, I just pay that portion back to the city, and that's still okay for our, I don't know how legal and HR works, but if I wanted the city insurance, so you're saying I wouldn't get the money, my cap would be 37,000, which would, for me, I would allow for that money to still go into the insurance. If you're one person, you would just get the cash, over the or whatever. So that would be fine for me. I think my other question would be thinking through what the cap is or what that insurance level is, because as we know, our insurance costs, what that salary level is, because as we know, our insurance costs go up and down, and obviously the city insurance is pretty, affordable. So if our cap is 37, and, for me as a family of 5, if it goes up to I don't know, 40 next year, then I'm just paying out of pocket $3,000. We're not every year adjusting. Because as you said, we can only adjust our pay every 4 years.
Right.
So just making sure we're however we factor the cost, because I do think Alderman Rainey is right. We need to have fairness in pay, and this is a job that we're already undercompensated for. Just making sure we're not making it so that people then still can't afford quality insurance.
So, Alderman Nguyen?
Okay, so I think Alderman Fleming, you make a really good point. And so, I mean, I'm just thinking this through. Is there a way to predict based on what insurance costs, the percent change in insurance costs for the last 4 years, and then we could project forward for the next 4 years, and then so that, you know, it's a guess, but it might be correct or incorrect for that matter. But it would be based on prior data. So you could say insurance costs have gone up, 1.8% for each successive year. Then, that way you're allowing for that. Just thinking, it's stream of thought here.
From what I saw on the information we received, our insurance actually went down.
Okay. Well, then, Ann, if that's what's been happening, I think that's fine too. Yeah.
No, this is one time. I mean, I don't know about in the past, but the recent numbers show it went down.
I know. Over the years, it's generally gone up quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Alderman Rainey, thank you for this introduction and the background, your memo. Equal pay certainly should be a goal. I'm going to wait for further comment. Alderman Fleming?
Oh, just one quick thing, and I think we might have covered this. Are we exempt from the, what is it called, gross, every year the staff get the gross living, whatever, cost of living increase, we're exempt from that? Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then also, is there any maximum of percentage raise increase? Because this would be like a substantial percentage compensation package raise. There's no issues with that at all?
That's up to
Set
legal.
the amount.
Pardon?
just
We
have
set
to
the amount. Okay.
You just have to
perfect.
set the amount, what that will be for the next 4 years. So each year can be a different amount. It just has to be set now before the next election.
Got it. Alderman Sufferton?
Yeah, and on that point, without questioning the legality of whatever combinations being proposed here, Alex, what's the deadline for us to have this locked in? Is it 180 days from when the new council and mayor and clerk would be sworn in?
Well, according to the ordinance, it just said that the Aldermanic Compensation Committee needed to present this to City Council 240 days prior to the election. So that's the only legal requirement, and they already did that by presenting to Rules Committee.
So there's no deadline for the council to make a decision relating to the next, when the new council, mayor, and clerk would be seated?
Not in our city code.
In state law, perhaps?
I can double check.
Okay.
It has to be before the next city council is seated. That's why a majority of municipalities do this as part of their budget process. So it's budgeted into the next budget cycle.
Mayor Haggerty?
Yeah, on that point, I would just hope that the city council would make a decision sooner rather than later how it wants to proceed on this, because we're in the petitioning period right now. There are people looking at whether to run or not, and I don't think it's fair to them to not understand what the arrangement would be if they choose to run and they get elected. So I just say sooner rather than later.
Is there any further discussion? Alderman Nguyen?
I just say that on prior councils, when this decision has come up, generally speaking, it has been made during this time period, as Kimberly has said. I think since we changed our budget to the calendar year, this has always been at least the 2 times I think that we have done it during that time period. We're done in October meetings or November meetings.
So, Alderman Simmons,
Yes.
could we ask Human Resources to send us back a memo based on our discussion tonight regarding how this would work, and especially how those who wanted to use part of their money, their salary for insurance, how that would be handled by the IRS? I mean, could that amount of money be not taxed when they purchase their insurance from the city?
Well, why don't we get a memo with all the scenarios,
Yeah.
possibilities, taxation, and all the above? Perfect. So that request has been made. Is there any further discussion?
I have one.
Mayor Haggerty?
Yeah, I just had one question. Is it by state statute that we have to have a compensation committee? Do you know, Alex? Or Alderman Rainey? I mean, the reason I'm asking that question is I have a lot of respect for all the boards and commissions. I know we all do, that do a lot of hard work for the city. And ultimately, this is the council's decision about how they want to set it up for the next council. But I'm always sensitive to the hard work that these different boards and commissions do. So I was just curious, is it by state statute that we have to have a compensation committee, or maybe in the future, if the council chooses not to go with the recommendation of them, maybe the next council can think, hey, do we need to have this, or do we just handle it in rules committee and have a conversation as a council?
Yeah, Alderman or Mayor Haggerty, I was just looking quickly at the state statute. It looks like the compensation, all it says in the state statute is that the salary will be fixed by the city council. So I think the committee that was formed to review the salaries was something that Evanston did, and then we codified it in our city code.
Thank you.
Alderman Ruth Simmons, can I just add one more addition for the memo, please, before we move
Okay.
on? I know that you all said cover all scenarios, but I just want to make sure for that piece, Alderman Rainey, you mentioned in terms of the taxation, if people want to use the compensation for insurance. Ms. Richardson, can you ask if people are able to either opt in or opt out for insurance? And then that way, if there is a taxation piece for that extra money, they can just opt in and not have the, cash in hand per se that they're paying back to the city?
But we're not giving money back. But my point is that when you are paid for your insurance, that is not counted as taxable income. So what I am suggesting is if the people want to use their city council salary for city insurance, that somehow be figured out so that it will not be taxable. But those who don't want to use their salary for city insurance, that money, I believe, has to be taxed.
So go ahead, Alderman Fleming.
No, that's okay, go ahead.
So we're measuring the highest rate of compensation on our current council with a $37,000 insurance package. And so the recommendation is that we have a compensation direct payment of $37,000 plus the $15,900 or whatever that is for 52.
No.
So
It's
please.
just 57 is added together already.
Yeah.
Okay, so 37 would be the new automatic compensation package.
Right, that's insurance plus this current salary.
Which is just about what 6 aldermen are making right now. So there's only 2 that aren't
Got it.
family. So it's not a huge amount of money, just so you know.
Yeah, no, not at all. Okay.
So are you going to address the mayor and the clerk as well?
No, I'm not.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I think the mayor and the clerk, why wouldn't, I don't know. I mean, let's just think, I guess let's talk about this for 1 second. All right. So let's set aside the clerk because that is set up as a full-time employee, a full-time position. The mayor's still a part-time position. So I do think the question for the council then is, do you want the mayor as part of this, or does the mayor, if the mayor comes and has a family and wants the family plan, or the mayor comes and is just single, do they get the sort of the gross up, so to speak, that we're talking about here?
I think you're missing my point. The point isn't whether or not you get to buy insurance. The point is everybody gets treated equally. So there's only one of you. If you would like your insurance costs to be folded into your salary, I think you should argue that. Otherwise, the point I'm making is that we have 9 people who are all making a variety of different amounts of compensation, which is not equal pay for equal work. You are one person. So I think you should argue what your case should be. On
this item, I'm not going to argue anything. So
because we're not taking anything from anybody. You can still have your full insurance. So
My clarity is the number that we're trying to set for compensation for the mayor and clerk been determined by the memo? Are you comfortable with those numbers, or do they need to be reviewed further? Because we have to have a number set by the clerk.
Those weren't brought up for discussion. So the only one brought up for discussion was the automatic compensation. So if someone is bringing it up for discussion, I guess now would be the time, but I haven't heard any discussion about the clerk or the mayor's office. Alderman Wilson.
Thanks. And I think we do have to also set those numbers as well. I think I'm going to suggest that we leave the mayor and the clerk in the more traditional manner, which is they receive the salary plus they receive the insurance coverage. So we wouldn't, do this kind of added together because we don't have that same disparity in the compensation because there's only one person. So I suggest that we leave those as they are. At last cycle, we'd given a 23% bump in the mayor's salary and an 18% bump in the clerk's salary. So the clerk was up to it's $64,120, and the mayor is $25,317. So I guess the question would be then, do we want to increase those from those levels?
Alderman Rainey.
one thing I think we ought to be careful about is the recommending body suggested that the mayor and the city clerk neither get family insurance, and we ought to restore that, no matter how it's going to be handled. So,
Well, that's what Alderman Wilson just said.
Yeah.
well, he said insurance. I want to make it clear that the committee said no family insurance, only insurance for the mayor. And that,
Right.
that's
So it would be family insurance.
yes.
Yes.
Thank you, Alderman Fleming.
I would say, I would propose that the clerk have the option of, individual up to family insurance if they choose, and the mayor's as well with insurance, but have the salary remain the same. Because if the mayor, whoever they are, was to have the family insurance, which I think is like $27,000, and their salary I think is $24,000, they still are over what the alderman would be at 37. And I guess we could go back and forth about how much work they have versus our work, but I think that makes it more of a pay equity standard. So the clerk is already a full-time position. We are not considered full-time, though we work full-time. And so I think having everyone at that 37 and the mayor would be at a little bit more if they drew insurance would be a fair scale.
Yep.
So keeping the mayor at the 25 plus they can take the max compensation for insurance. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Well, I would say.
And that max is what the current mayor, that's what the measurement of the max insurance package is, the current mayor's family status?
I would fold that in and make that the salary.
So for the purpose of the ordinance, we're just speaking to compensation. We're not talking about health insurance that is separate.
No, no, we are, that's what we're talking about.
Ma'am, if you listen to what I'm saying, for the mayor and the clerk, we're only speaking to the compensation amount of what it is that you want to be able to move forward with. We recognize everything else is staying status quo since you rejected this compensation committee's report last meeting. So we're just speaking to compensation. Everything else would stay status quo for the mayor and the clerk from what I'm gathering from this conversation.
That's what I'm intending.
I think so. And what I would just add is I think that as pay increases occur, like if you adopt that, I don't know if you're going to or not, but if you adopt the pay increases year 3 and year 4 for the next term of the council, that would apply to the clerk and the mayor position as well. I just think all of that's consistent among council members and the mayor and the clerk.
Just seems that the clerk should not necessarily have the same standard and guidelines because they're a full-time employee.
You're not an employee. I want us to be clear. This is still a stipend.
Full-time compensation, I'm sorry. Full-time compensation already. So it seems that more of the challenge is the disparity in pay, discrepancy in pay on the automatic level. So am I hearing concerns in the clerk's office as well, or yeah? Alderman Nguyen?
Okay, my apologies. I think I'm confused. So in our prior discussion, we decided to increase the aldermanic salary for everyone to make sure it's equal, from 50 to add on the largest insurance package possible for the next council, if you which would be 37, on top of the 15.9. Now, did we?
It's not 37 plus 15.9. People keep saying.
Oh, I'm sorry, Don. I did know that. The 15.9 plus I'm sorry, I did know that. But have we agreed to change the next council's salaries for years 3 and 4?
No.
No. Yes. So that's what I thought. Okay. So just so I understand, we're saying the next council's salary will remain 15,990 and plus the insurance package. Correct?
The insurance compensation, right? Correct.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So now for mayor, I'll just go for mayor. Are we deciding that in years 3 and 4, the mayor salary will go up as the compensation commission suggested, or that it will remain the same at 25,317? I'm just talking about the salary now.
Yeah.
And I'm just saying it should all be on the same schedule. Whatever you guys decide, just make it the same. Make it the same schedule for ease.
And I would agree with that. Then I think that just as we are deciding that the next the next 9 aldermen will remain at their current salary plus the insurance compensation package, that I think the mayor and whoever the next mayor and the next clerk are, their salary should remain the same. So the mayor's would be 25,317 plus the insurance package, and the clerk is 64,120 plus the package. So I just want to make sure that's what we're all talking about.
So can I'm sorry. Can I just get clarification from staff, because I want to make sure we're getting this clear. You recognize that insurance goes up and the compensation for that insurance is going to fluctuate from year to year. So would it make more sense to not muddle this conversation and have an insurance stipend that's separate from your main compensation?
No,
Because
that's what
right now,
we have that now.
No, well, here's the problem. Right now, you have to come up with a fixed dollar amount. And
Right.
it's fixed, and it's not going to change. And so if you have a stipend, you are able to change that from year to year to be able to adjust to whatever cost for insurance is going to be, so you're not paying out of pocket.
Well, maybe there's going to be some paying out of pocket. Who knows?
Right.
But that's it.
Point I made before, but I think that we've all agreed that that's just that the next council is going. We are putting that risk on the next council.
Well, I mean, I think we're measuring off of this current council's and the largest family status that happens to be taking insurance. So we're just like coming up with this number as the new compensation package of $37,000. And I think we just dropped the discussion about insurance, and that is the responsibility of the aldermen to pursue either with the city or on their own, or take the risk and not be insured. And let's not even call it compensation plus insurance. Let's just call it
Compensation.
The alderman will get a substantial raise to $37,000 a year compensation. And does that include? Do we need to discuss the technology benefit, or is that in there also?
That's extra.
So that is a separate discussion as part of the rules. So you can have that conversation anytime. That is not a part of the ordinance that require you to have a compensation.
Why don't we see what comes back to us and then we can continue?
So I would also, when we get that memo, I would recommend that the mayor have the same package, that it is one city council package and not a separate $25,000 plus insurance. So if it's $37,000 compensation, then the mayor have the same package as the alderman as well.
I agree. Yeah.
Alderman Suffredin?
I want to make sure that I understand. We have two issues here. There's the human resources legality piece of this that we need to have a discussion with our director of human resources about, to make sure that what's being discussed here is actually doable. And then there's the public policy part, where we need to make sure that candidates for office who need to file their petitions in November understand what their compensation might be should they be elected. With our rules committee schedule being what it is it appropriate for us to set a date and time to have this discussion and intend to have it completed sometime sooner rather than later?
Is there any discussion on Alderman Suffredin's point before we get to Alderman Rainey, unless you're responding to that?
I am.
Yes, Alderman Rainey?
Well, I agree completely with Tom. However, just to clarify, if we proceed along this track, any candidate who is out passing a petition, it sounds to me, can count on the aldermanic salary plus an additional compensation added to that so that they can shop and buy family insurance. I mean, I don't see that we're taking anything away from anybody.
Well, I'm not pining on taking away or giving. I'm saying if you're a candidate for office, or you're someone who's considering being a candidate for office, and you have other obligations, including your primary employment and your family, you should have some certainty as to what you are signing up for in terms of what level of compensation you might expect. And that applies to anybody who's thinking of running for any of the offices we're discussing. And
Which is why I agree with your setting a date.
So I guess what I'm asking, and I don't know if it's appropriate to ask it of Kimberly, of Alex, of the mayor, of the chair of the rules committee, Alderman Ruth Simmons, when can we have that discussion? And how much time do we presume that Jennifer Lynn or whomever from the law department or HR will need to figure out some of the ramifications of the things that have been proposed tonight?
Very important, Alderman Suffredin. So is any staff on here able to give us feedback if 1 week is a reasonable time to get back with this information, and we could have a special rules meeting? Because we can have rules meetings as we need them, right? That's how we schedule them. So as a courtesy to the candidates and those looking to run for reelection, compensation is something that needs to be considered as well. So is that an unreasonable expectation to have a memo back so that we can take an action on it?
We scheduled it for October 19th before a special city council meeting.
Okay, that,
Second.
1 second. So October 19th would be the Rules Committee meeting?
So we have special city council meetings starting at 6. If we can meet at 5 to have
Okay.
rules committee so that way we can notice properly and we can make sure that Jen can be available to be a part of the conversation.
Perfect. And then there's a council meeting calendar before petitions need to be signed, turned in, so
Yes.
that all that can be settled. Okay. So Alderman Rain, I'm sorry, Mayor Haggerty.
No, we'll finish up, and then I wanted to go back to something you said earlier.
Okay. So we had who made the motion? Alderman Rainey seconded. Alderman Suffredin, did you make the motion?
I don't think I had an actual motion. I was just asking when we could have the meeting, but I am happy to make a motion that we meet on October 19th. Kimberly, did you say it was 5?
Correct, sir.
That we have a meeting to discuss this and resolve this October 19th at 5 p.m.
Second.
Thank you. So we will meet on October 19th, 5 p.m. We'll have a memo back from Jen Lynn or the appropriate staff and take action, then move forward to City Council. Mayor Haggerty.
So I just wanted to go back to something that you had said, Alderman, about the mayor position. Were you saying that the proposal we want the council or the city's manager's office to come back with is that the mayor's salary and everything is now set at the same as the alderman?
Yes.
Because you said 37,000. So, okay. So just so we're clear, right? So we're decreasing the compensation of the mayor of Evanston.
Oh, no.
Okay. Well, we didn't discuss it, but Alderman Ruth Simmons put that forward.
That's
So I just
what
wanted
saying.
to make sure.
I was recommending that it be in line or exactly the same as the alderman on City Council, that the mayor and the alderman have the same compensation package. That was what I was recommending.
I was saying we should just leave the mayor's compensation and the clerk's compensation as it is. That was my suggestion.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I would like discussion on why. I mean, I know because it's tradition and that's why, but why does the mayor make more than the alderman?
Traditionally, it was because the position is also the liquor commissioner, which is another role. So that's typically, you see that is a number of reasons for why the mayor makes more is because they have that additional title as commissioner, liquor commissioner.
Interesting.
That is
Yeah.
interesting because I know that some aldermen, have several at least commissions, board roles, and often chair. So in terms of work product deliverables, expectation, time investment, I just never understood why the mayor also has a full-time staff person in office. It just never really made sense to me on why the mayor is compensated more than the alderman based on the roles of the alderman and our responsibility, level of engagement, committee obligations, meeting requirements, policy making. Just doesn't seem, when we're talking about pay equity and those other things, I just would like little discussion. So Mayor, you're in the role right now. Do you have any feedback on why it's justified that the mayor makes more than the alderman? And that you're better supported, having a full-time executive secretary and an office and other support to help you perform in your job? And it's not even a challenge, just feedback. Because I would recommend that we all make the same.
So I don't know the history, right? I came into the office and the pay was what the pay was. I can tell you there's certainly an expectation in this town that the mayor is sort of the overall ambassador of the city and is expected to be at a lot of different events all over the city. And that takes a lot of time. for folks. I can tell you that, my predecessor, Mayor Tisdall, if you went back and you talked to the compensation committee at that time and sort of looked at the surveys and everything else, worked a lot of hours and, was just like, your job, sort of very much, a 40-hour a week kind of job. It is, the city manager, if there's some big issue that's going on, the first person that, she tends to go to is the mayor and says, hey, I want you to be aware of what's going on. The interaction with a lot of, state legislators and things like that, comes out of the mayor's office. So obviously all the boards and commissions and all of that, as you all know, we have quite a bit of those. It's a lot of time spent with the staff trying to figure out, who are the, should we put on these boards and commissions? So there's that. So that's a little insight into it.
Alderman Nguyen? Thank you.
I think that one of the differences that I can think of is the mayor is elected by the entire city. And while I agree that we frequently have similar amounts of work to the mayor, but I think from the standpoint of the fact that my understanding from all three mayors that I've known is that anyone from any ward considers themselves represented by the mayor, and that I see frequently people in my ward write to the mayor first and CC me sometimes, and I think that and the mayor responds and then lets me know. Thank you, but I do think because it is a citywide elective office, and Steve is right. There are many events that we are all invited, but I don't necessarily feel that I am compelled to go to every single one of those. But partly because I know the mayor will be there. I try to go to those as many as possible, but I think that is an obligation of the mayors that is different than what we have. And because the mayor is elected by the entire electorate.
Alderman Rainey?
I agree with Alderman Nguyen. I wouldn't have any problem, and I don't see why Mayor Haggerty would have a problem with taking the maximum insurance benefit and folding it in to the salary so that it would be more than anybody else. I mean, that's what I would do, but that's up to you.
Well, I think it's up to the council to decide. Again, I think you need to think about these positions in terms of the amount of work that's required and, the type of people that we're trying to attract, and obviously the more flexibility there is in the total compensation, I think, the greater the pool of people we can draw from who would be willing to run for these important positions.
Okay.
So have we given enough direction,
I think.
or is there still?
Did we vote on Alderman Suffredin's motion?
We did. You seconded.
Okay. I know I seconded, but I don't remember.
Oh, yeah. Need a roll call?
Yes, so just so you know, Alderman Braithwaite has just joined.
Good evening, Alderman. Great.
This is for us to meet for October 19th for a special rules committee meeting.
Yes, please.
Okay.
With the memo. And
Okay.
With a specific purpose of?
Discussion of compensation for the city council and before the 2021 election.
So we're not ready to vote tonight?
no.
Correct, sir.
What were the issues, just as a point of information? Again, sorry that I was late.
So Alderman Braithwaite, we have general consensus to move forward with a $37,000 compensation recommendation for the alderman, and we've asked for a memo from Jen Lynn to give us feedback on if there are any legal issues or other issues, personnel-wise or human resources, that we should be aware of before we take a council action on it. We have not changed any recommendation from the clerk's role, and except to add back in the insurance benefit that the compensation package recommended we take, the compensation committee recommended we take away, and to leave the mayor's compensation and insurance compensation benefit the same. And we have a motion by Alderman Suffredin. We have it seconded by Alderman Rainey. And if you don't have any further questions, we're going to take a roll call vote next.
And then one more thing, Alderman Simmons, thank you for the summary. What, within the conversation, can someone please summarize what the vote has to do with the memo from Jen Lynn? I don't see the connection. Well,
so the connection, Alderman Rainey sent a memo, and it's been supported that equal pay and pay equity and fairness is a priority that we want to honor. And instead of having some aldermen getting 15.9 plus,
I got you.
All
the
right.
Insurance piece. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions about it? Alderman Braithwaite?
No, good.
Okay, can we go ahead and take a roll call vote, please?
Alderman Braithwaite.
Think I'm voting aye.
Okay. Alderman Nguyen.
Aye.
Wilson.
Aye.
Simmons.
Aye.
Suffredin.
Aye.
Ravel.
Aye.
Rainey.
Aye.
Fleming.
Aye.
Haggerty.
Aye.
Motion passes. Let me see. Sorry, let me pull my agenda back up.
Chair Simmons.
Alderman, yes.
I just wanted to specify, I did look up the state statute, and it looks like we do have to fix this by ordinance 180 days before the new council is seated. So it'll be approximately January 1.
Thank you. Alderman Nguyen, will you take R3, please?
Yes, just give me one moment, please, to find it on my agenda. Yes, R3 is funding structure of Housing and Community Development Act Committee and Mental Health Board allocation. The staff seeks feedback on a proposed restructure to the allocation process of the CDBG and Mental Health Board funds for fiscal year 2021 through a unified process to allocate funding using a racial equity lens to address inequities in our community and the systemic obstacles that impact our lower income residents, particularly African Americans, Latinos, and other people of color.
Second.
Open for
Good evening, everybody. I don't think there's a motion needed. I think we're just seeking feedback at this point.
Okay.
Okay.
Right,
So,
Alex, we don't need a motion?
do we need a motion to discuss this?
Okay, any discussion?
Sarah Flax has a presentation we wanted to take you through. We've talked quite a bit about how we can respond to the projects and activities that we fund, particularly in light of the pandemic that we've experienced and our ongoing support and the way in which we get money from the federal government, as well as looking at the Social Services Core Committee and how we've shifted away from a provider focus more to the customer focus. So I have asked Sarah to be very brief in her presentation. If we could give it, that would be great, because we're looking for direction as we go forward for the 2021 funding cycle.
Thank you.
Sarah, you're muted, so.
I am. Uh-oh, hang on. Okay, I have to try to unmute myself here.
We can hear you, Sarah.
Okay, now you can hear me? Okay, I can never tell.
Could you, Sarah, I'm sorry. Could you speak up just a little bit?
I will speak up. My I don't know what is wrong with this particular laptop, but I'm going to have it checked for sound because I always seem to be hard to hear, and that's not normally something that is an issue for me. All right, now I'm trying to get my screen shared again, and I'm not having any luck on that. So let me.
See your screen, Sarah.
You're seeing it? Okay.
Yes.
Good.
We just need you to put in presentation mode.
All right. Now I got it. Thank you. All right. Thank you for listening to our proposal on how to reallocate, how to redo our CDBG and mental health board funding allocation process. The objectives of this new process are to achieve the city goal of eliminating the systemic inequities in service delivery, particularly for our Blacks, Latinos, and other people of color. And as Johanna already mentioned, to use a service delivery process that is customer focused rather than provider focused. In addition, those two goals came out of the Social Services Core Committee's recommendation that was made to City Council last summer and was accepted. And the first phase of that, which was reorganizing the city staff into the Health and Human Services Department, went forward. This is the second step, which was to address how we use our funding that goes to outside organizations. So we agreed on those first two bullet points, and now we are also dealing with the additional challenge of facilitating Evanston's recovery from COVID-19, and that has really heightened the importance of taking into account the disparate impacts on those people of color that we've already talked about. So the Social Services Core Committee vision was to establish a community where members have equitable opportunities to achieve their full potential and to identify systemic inequities, dismantle institutional barriers, and focus resources on the greatest need. Then again, COVID-19 made its appearance, and I think we have to acknowledge that returning to pre-COVID-19 normal will not address racial inequities or focus on greatest needs. So that's why we're looking at a changed process. Okay, let's see. Recommendations from the Social Services Core Committee, leading with that racial equity lens. There's the client-focused approach, reduce the stigma. I'm not going to read every single one of these. These were all presented at the time. So we've been looking at who those groups are that were already marginalized and then also most impacted by COVID-19. So we have our Blacks, Latinos, and other people of color. Extremely low and very low income residents, the under 30% and 50% of area median income also falls into one of those categories. Homeless, unstably housed, disaffected youth and young adults, low income seniors, negatively impacted by the criminal justice system. These were all in our discussion of who are some of the groups we have to look at. But in addition, families that lack resources to provide equitable opportunity for children is heightened even more by COVID-19, as is essential workers who don't have a work from home option. This isn't something that Housing and Grants staff can put in a memo and say this is exactly what should be done. In order to focus funding on our highest needs, we really need to collaborate with our nonprofits and community, nonprofit partners and community resources, because we really have a great many resources in Evanston, and we need to make sure that we are using them to the best effect to address the needs of our residents. One of the things that is key to really helping families and individuals that have a great many obstacles to overcome is really intensive case management that makes a client-centric service delivery process for those highest need clients. We also need a referral system that really gives faster access to things they need. Primary care, mental health care, child care, substance abuse counseling, legal services, all of these things, not everybody needs all of them. Some people need more than others, but they need to be able to get into those services faster. And then we also need to maintain certain safety net services, including food, domestic violence services, emergency shelters, street outreach, and drop-in services. So we're proposing a funding system that looks at funding things differently based on the program or service and the source as well. CDBG is much less flexible than mental health board funding. Mental health board service funding is actually from our Human Services Fund, but CDBG would continue to be used on a grant basis or subrecipient agreements, as it's called in CDBG speak. Mental health board funding would be partially grants, and also we want to look at fee-for-services agreements based on existing payment schedules that might, all give us guidance, like Medicaid or the Illinois Child Care Assistance Program, so that we can provide direct assistance on behalf of individuals that are in that case management. One of the benefits of doing this is it would also allow us with some services to expand to include healthcare professionals, for example, who may be in private practice, particularly professionals of color that could help address cultural barriers to those people seeking services. There's also a potential to look at income and wealth disparities by doing something like taking our MWEBE approach, which is allows us to give a contract to minority and women-owned or Evanston-based businesses, if it is within 5% of the, or if it's no more than 5% of the lowest responsive and responsible bid. Well, that could be a way of both incentivizing professionals of color to get involved in providing direct services and help, because in many cases, professionals of color take lower pay scales to serve communities that they are a part of. Grant funding, these programs could be, grant-funded programs could be, in some cases, funded with a combination of CDBG and mental health board funding, and that's to mitigate cash flow issues due to the late releases of CDBG. If you're getting CDBG alone and you have a traditional fiscal year that starts July 1st, you don't get, your fiscal year is split by the city's fiscal year, and you won't get any funding generally because we don't get it released until the second half of our year. One of the things that this could allow us to do if we combined funding from the two sources would be to keep some agencies from only getting funded late in the year and, as I say, help their cash flow. What might this look like? Well, this is a big what if, because there are just a lot of things we have to figure out. If we're doing grants for case management, we have to figure out how many cases, how many people might be involved and in what targeted populations. Food, we've already are making dramatic different changes to our food delivery system, and it looks like we are going to need to continue to expand and supplement food pantries and the traditional sources and continue home delivered meals and groceries for COVID vulnerable populations. So the needs have changed from last year when we were doing mental health and CDBG allocations. We also have greater need for emergency shelter or differences in our emergency shelters due to COVID-19 and the need to continue all these other services. But so those would be grants. Fee for services would be looked at for, as I say, the more direct services on an individual client basis, and could also benefit our city staff clients by allowing them to use that same fee schedule to get people into direct services. And then there could be a combination of grants and fee for services based on the population served and the programming for other types of services. Again, I'm not going to read through all of these. What's really important is that we have a collaborative process to do this with both our agency partners and others in the community who have really stepped up to address COVID-19, including the Community Foundation, and probably our healthcare providers that we don't normally loop in on CDBG and mental health board discussions quite the same way. We're proposing convening a series of meetings about the different needs and available to identify available services, gaps in those services that really would build off on the work of the EOC subcommittees and the CDBG, CB, and ESG CB planning work. And these are just the categories that seem most obvious. Case management is really to pin down the people of greatest need and try to figure out how many and get some scope to the work we need. And then we've already talked a bit about some of the other needs, but childcare, for example, and programs for youth are dramatically different than they have been in the past, and the needs are very different. And we really need to look at that, not just go out with our standard request for proposals and see what people are providing. Implementation. We really need to look at shifting our schedule to a planning phase for the public services part of our funding. And remember, the public services part of CDBG is really only 15% of the grant overall, and it's at this point an estimated grant anytime we work with it. But so October through January, we would work with community partners to really develop this new structure. We should open applications for CDBG public services and mental health board funding then, probably in early February, and make allocations in April, which is actually not that much later. We approved the mental health board funding in this year at our April 13th meeting, if I recall. And we can open the applications for the CDBG bricks and sticks categories, public facilities and infrastructure, housing rehab, and also economic development, and do that on our more consistent with our regular time frame, proposing opening applications for about November 1, and then having estimated funding allocations made by the Housing and Community Development Act Committee at its December meeting. The rationale, we had a late release of both mental health board funding, and CDBG Public Services was not even available till September of this year, just due to when the federal government released the actual funds. And currently we're still working with EOC subcommittees and others in the community to implement our rental assistance program, beef up our food programs, and also to look at what else we can do for childcare. And so this gives us the flexibility to respond to changing COVID-19 needs and the potential changes in federal and state funding that could happen based on outcomes of our November 3rd election. So that is my presentation. If there are any questions.
Thank you, Sarah. I can't see if there are any hands up. Is there any discussion or questions for Sarah? Alderman Rainey? You're muted, Alderman Rainey.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Sounds like an awful lot of work has gone into your analysis and your proposal. I'm curious to know how committed and involved were the mental health people on this? And by that, I mean the volunteer types. And secondly, I mean, it seems to me for the most part, additional work on the part of CD by being a good partner here would be, we have to change the rules about public service. I mean, that's where our on the ground money is, and it just seems to me way too restrictive for us to really use that category as making meaningful grants. And I think you know what I mean. I might not be expressing myself well to those who don't know, but we have such a restriction on our public service money through CD that sometimes we argue whether or not this grant is even going to be meaningful for, this organization. So that's my concern. But tell us about the mental health community. Are they committed to this?
Well, we have to go to them with more detail, but all of them were involved and engaged in the developing the recommendation of the core social services core committee that came to council last summer. Granted, it's been off the plate for many, many people and most of the organizations. In fact, they've been probably spending most of their efforts just trying to keep their heads above water. And so I think bringing this back, that's one of the reasons for the longer time frame. I think we really need to have time to talk to them and get input from them.
Okay, thank you. But don't forget about the need to change the rules on public service. I mean, there's got to be a way we can involve ourselves through the committees that you serve on that have to do with community development.
Right. And there are some things like we do a completely open request for applications.
I know.
I think that we should, especially under these circumstances, this doesn't mean we'll do this forever, narrow our focus and target more effectively so that we don't have organizations applying if what they are going to apply for really isn't going to be seriously able to be funded. I mean, I just honestly don't see how we can do business as usual under the many, under COVID-19 recovery and what we have to try to do to come out of it.
Thank you.
Alderman Fleming?
Yes, thank you. So Sarah, my question has to do with how this will work with the money we already passed through to agencies. So you put on one of the slides, outreach to the homeless, and in speaking with Connections, they've now ramped up their outreach team. I think they have 4 staff members now, and they primarily work, our homeless agency here. So as you, and I guess it's on here, but just as you're going through these things, obviously, some, a lot of services are provided, a lot of services are needed, but we do have a lot of money we already passed through. And so wanting to make sure that, this pool of money is really, super targeted at where we have gaps and not just, giving the same organizations more money, but really doing the best we can to pinpoint where there are not services. So if I think about childcare, I think in last year, the state, there were some changes to the childcare subsidy funds. But if I think about after school and even, middle school or high school people, YOU gets a lot of federal funding to provide some of those services, although not citywide. So I would really want to make sure if we're going to put more money in that area as to students who don't already have services. And I appreciate the racial equity lens, but like kids in South Evanston, because their schools are not necessarily all the same titling, they don't all have the same service. So making sure that we're really pinpointing the people who need the funds versus just giving money to the agencies that do certain services already.
Is there, go ahead.
One of the things, even with child or youth programming, I mean, right now, when the schools aren't in session, clearly our programs have to shift and already have, but we have one of the things that we see in article after article about the gap between the well-to-do and less well-to-do, financially well-off students is going to be exacerbated by the lack of, you have families with more money who are setting up learning pods and things like that and getting additional resources. And there also, we have families with 1 or 2 working parents who are not home, and they have no way of supervising their children and keeping them on track. And that's part of why the city's doing the camps right now. And we've been in discussion with our staff there. And one of the things they say is, we can make sure kids are logged in and stuff like that, but we're Parks and Rec people. We are not educational support people. We may need programs that are really very different from what we have provided in the past at this time to be able to help keep that educational achievement gap from getting even larger.
One last thing I did forget, if you can make sure to, at best as your next step, a loop in the mental health board. And I don't know if that's who Alderman Rainey was speaking of, but they put a lot of time into all this work every year. And, you know, I would hate for them to feel like not until seeing this meeting that they know there were going to be some changes in how they're working.
Well, as I say, they were aware of the Social Services Core Committee, and we did let them know about this meeting, and it is also, we need to involve them. You're absolutely right. We need to continue to involve them and the Housing and Community Development Act Committee.
Alderman Ravel?
Well, the phrase that leaped out at me in reading the memo is the whole emphasis on case management. And I'm correct in thinking that's a new approach, or a new emphasis. But it seems to me that sounds like a very effective way to work with the people that we want to work with in this program, to create these wraparound client-based services and really a program that can really help families in particular make some real strides in greater self-sufficiency and so that they don't always need the services. But I think this sounds very, very promising.
Thank you. The goal is to lift them out of that and
exactly.
provide much greater depth of support to the people of greatest need so they actually do make progress, and we just don't continue the cycle of falling in and out of housing and poverty and everything else. Yes.
Right.
So we will probably help fewer people in terms of our total numbers at much greater depth of service.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Is there any further discussion? Let's see. Looks like no. So with that, do we need to take any action or just accepting it?
We'll take the feedback and keep working on this and provide an update to the council on our next steps, which Sarah mentioned were the meetings and getting further input from different committees.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sarah.
Yes, thank you, Sarah. R4, Alderman Fleming.
Yes, R4 is staff recommends the Rules Committee provide a recommendation to City Council to dissolve the Parking and Transportation Committee. This is for action.
Second.
Alderman Nguyen?
Yes, I want to say that I very much support this. I have served on the Parking Committee and the Transportation and Parking Committee for the entire time I've been on the City Council. My first term, it was absolutely critical that we have I knew it was critical that I be on that Parking Committee because 8 out of 10 phone calls I used to receive were about parking. And then gradually we have realized that we really need to address the issues of transportation, not just parking. But I do think that so many of the parking issues that we have now really are more something that could be addressed by one of the standing committees of the City Council. But in terms of transportation, I agree with the staff's memo here that we really need to be looking at transportation issues from a much more of an in-depth policy point of view. We have micro-mobility issues going on. The pandemic has possibly changed some of those things. We have electric vehicles coming at us faster than we even realize. There are the entire world of transportation and how we get around is really in flux right now, and how it's addressed by the city of Evanston needs to be done in a more holistic, comprehensive way than we can get done at Transportation and Parking on a monthly meeting. So I agree with the dissolution of this committee, and but I very much support that we increase our study and understanding of transportation policy, and then act on these larger issues that are coming towards us and be ready for them. So that I agree with this, and I think that this is the right time to do this.
Thank you, Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Rainey?
I just want to thank Alderman Nguyen for her good service on that committee.
With pleasure, Ann.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on this?
No.
So we need an action on this?
Roll call vote. You sure?
Alderman Braithwaite?
No, I just assumed we
Oh,
needed
sorry.
a roll call vote
Yeah.
to.
Now you're being called on, Peter.
Vote. You need to vote.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was saying, a roll call vote to move it forward.
Yeah, and your turn is.
It's your turn and you wouldn't answer. So,
Right.
Alderman
So,
Braithwaite, you need to respond.
in support or Alderman Braithwaite?
I'm sorry, where are we? I thought I was responding to the chair to say a roll call vote to move
And
it
so
forward.
now-
I mean, I'll move that we dissolve
No,
this.
you just need to vote. You need to
Just
vote.
need to vote. Just vote.
We're in the vote. Who's on
Up or down,
first?
Peter?
All right, Alderman Braithwaite.
Yes, aye.
Nguyen, Alderman Nguyen.
Aye.
Wilson,
Aye.
Simmons,
Aye.
Sufferton,
Aye.
Ravel,
Aye.
Rainey,
Hey,
Fleming,
Aye.
Haggerty.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. And next we have R5, Alderman Sufferton. Will you take that one?
Sure thing, Madam Chair. I move item R5, which is Commission on Aging membership reduction. And this
Second.
is for, let's do it.
Sorry.
All right. Right.
That's it. Let's go. Let's talk about it. Let's reduce this.
Any discussion?
Kimberly, I'm sorry. Kimberly, can you just, you and I have talked about this and the need that it was so large to reduce the number. Can you just share with everybody we're reducing it from what to what? I don't have the paperwork in front of me.
15, yes, from 15 to 9, and it will be through attrition. So we have 10 currently serving, and when we have the ordinance go to City Council, by that point, it will be 9 members on the commission.
Perfect. Thank you. And 9 is pretty consistent with lots of our other boards and commissions. Thank you.
May I go with the roll call now?
Please do. We had it moved. I second it.
Alderman Braithwaite,
Aye.
Alderman Nguyen,
Aye.
Wilson,
Aye.
Simmons,
Aye.
Sufferton,
Aye.
Ravel,
Aye.
Rainey,
aye.
Fleming,
Aye.
Haggerty.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. Next we have, what is the number? R6? I don't have it in front of me, but I'm going to read
R6.
R6. Staff is recommending the Rules Committee to formalize a reparations subcommittee from an ad hoc committee to one established by ordinance. If approved, an ordinance will be created for City Council approval. I move approval.
Second,
So this, I didn't realize that this was an ad hoc or a temporary committee, and we have at least a 10-year commitment to our reparation initiative and possibility that it will extend beyond that. So it's important that we're able to formalize and institutionalize this work so that the reparation goals can continue with leadership beyond any particular leader, council, trend, agenda. And I'm hoping that we can do that so that we can strengthen, continue, and complete this work over time. Alderman Rainey?
Yes, I agree, and thank you for everything you've done for this project. I wanted to report that my latest report from Hatash was today, and that is our first receipts from the month of July for adult cannabis should be here either by the end of this week or the beginning of next week. And that's money that is rebated to us from the state after they collect the adult cannabis tax, which is then going to be committed to the reparations budget. Thank you.
Thank you for that update. It's exciting. Is there any further discussion on this or any staff report?
I will just be working with the committee to finalize the language within the ordinance, and we will have that to City Council within the next, hopefully at the end of this month of October.
Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, do you want to go ahead with the roll call, ma'am?
Did we have Alderman Rainey seconded? Yes, please. Thank you.
Braithwaite?
Yes.
Nguyen?
Yes.
Wilson?
Aye.
Simmons?
Aye.
Sufferton?
Aye.
Ravel?
Aye.
Rainey?
Aye.
Fleming? Haggerty?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. And then we have items for discussion. R8, Alderman Wilson, will you take R8, please?
Sure. This is a discussion item, and due to the COVID-19 pandemic, we've been conducting our meetings with the chat platforms, the face chat platforms, and some decorum issues have arisen, and the staff would like to get some direction from us on how we should address these issues and what rules we might or might not consider to address the issues. So I think this came, our city attorney brought this, right? Maybe she could share some of the specific concerns.
Thank you, Alderman Wilson. So a few concerns that I believe have been brought to my attention at least are some people are joining the meetings and not using their names. So it just says at XYZ. So we don't know who's attending the meetings. Whereas in a live meeting, if a person were to address the council, they would use their full name. So perhaps a rule where someone has to sign in with their name would be a rule that you might consider. Also, the public is just reminded that, there's a time for public comment, and public comment is when the public speaks, but then once the meeting is being conducted, the public is asked not to speak and to have their call remain on mute. So those were a couple of issues that we knew of, and then any other issues that the council may have addressed that they would like decorum rules that we can specify for these meetings. We would take notes.
Mayor Haggerty?
How big an issue is this? I mean, I'm just curious, do we really have a problem to solve? I mean, when we have in-person meetings, people will come with signs. We put a rule in place for how big or small the sign could be that was allowable. People sometimes would jump up and say, shame on you, we disagree, whatever. We're using this virtual platform now. And, at least the examples, Alex, that you just gave, I mean, I don't know. I've seen people, advocate for things based on, some hashtag they put for their name instead of, their name. And, and I guess I've also been on some of these meetings where people have burst in and said something. And we certainly don't want, unruly meetings where we can't get our business done. But part of that also is, democracy and how things, go at our meetings. So I'm just trying to understand the degree of the issue or the problem that we're trying to solve right now.
Well, and I think the degree of the issue would be up to you as a rules committee and you as a council. If, the council views this as an issue, certainly staff can create these rules. If, as a council, as a rules committee, you do not believe it's an issue, then we can leave the decorum to the chair of the meeting and go from there.
Alderman Rainey, then Alderman Braithwaite.
I agree with everything that the mayor said, except for one thing, and that is that if you're signing on to one of our committee meetings, you need to put your name down. I don't care where you live, but we need to know your name.
Alderman Braithwaite.
Thank you. And I'll be supportive of the mayor and Alderman Rainey. However, I do agree that having your name is important. It has not happened to me, and I'm assuming that the technology and the security measures have gotten better, but I have heard in the past that I don't know what the term is when someone just, busts into your meeting is either Zoom bombing, is that it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think having that measure where someone puts their name is important. I see the chat platforms, and I have been a part of meetings where there's inappropriate language and conversation that takes place within the chat. And I think I would like for whomever is our moderator to be able to monitor that in the event that when it gets verbally abusive. I also think, I believe that in this pandemic time that people are on edge a little bit more, Mayor, than we would see in a normal meeting. And I've had the occasion where the conversation has gone back and forth where someone needs to be muted, just the same way if we would have to take a recess or, hit the gavel in order to regain control. So it's a little bit different in a virtual sense, but I think to be able to mute someone who, for whatever reason, doesn't recognize when it's appropriate to speak is something that I would like our staff to be authorized to do with the chair's direction.
Okay, is there, so staff, we can get feedback on that, or staff can take that feedback. Alderman Wilson, then Alderman Fleming.
I generally agree with most of that. The only thing I guess maybe I would adjust a little bit is if you're going to speak, you should sign in with your name. But if you're just going to kind of watch the meeting quietly and not say anything, I don't know that would necessarily be required. So,
Well, Alderman Wilson, there are times where people don't know that they're going to speak until. So I think that's a rule that we would have to establish just consistently versus waiting for the individual to make that decision on their own. My apologies for interrupting.
Well, I think I'm fine making it a rule, but if you don't sign in with your name, then you can't speak. So then you're just subjecting yourself to the mute rule. Yeah. But I mean, I think I don't want to deter somebody from just quietly watching a meeting without announcing the fact that they're watching.
Alderman Fleming, Mayor Haggerty, if you had something after Alderman Fleming, please.
Oh, thank you. And I agree. I think the rule is, and Alex, correct me if I'm wrong. So if you come to a meeting in person, you sign up, we call your name, you speak. That's part of how we know you want to speak. So in this online platform, I assume you're doing something and let us know you're going to speak, and then the chair has your name and you speak. So I do think the only time we need your name is when you speak, because some people speak and they dial in on their iPhone. So then it just says iPhone and not their name. And I don't know, with that extra technology barrier, I don't know if they're able to put their name in there, if it always goes to the default iPhone. And so I hate to limit people, who are calling in and have a comment, and they're fine saying their name, but they can't write it in because they're calling in and it says Android or whatever it says when you call in. So I think saying your name when you speak, to your point, Alderman Braithwaite, I think our moderation has gotten much better. I think the chat is actually turned off now, which is very helpful. So you don't have that side banter. And then I think everyone is muted and their camera is off by our moderator. So when you sign in to speak and the chair calls your name, you speak, kind of no matter what your screen says. If you don't sign in, you don't get called on, you don't get unmuted to speak. So we don't have really those outbursts that maybe we used to have when we first got started with technology.
And I was just going to add, and I think it's been covered. I mean, I think people have, a right to privacy and a right to anonymity. And if they're not speaking, and if they're speaking, they have to sign up and we have to know who their name is. But just like a city council meeting, there could be 100 people in the room. Unless they're speaking, we don't know who they are. And they have the right to be, anonymous to us. I think the same should apply online.
Mayor, just as a point to that, the meetings are live streamed on the city's YouTube channel, so people can watch anonymously if they don't plan to speak. So that is an option as well, as it is when we're in person.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Alderman Rainey, did you have something?
No.
No? Okay. Was there any further discussion on that? Okay, then next we have excuse me, I'm sorry.
All right.
Okay, Alderman Ravel, will you take R9, please?
I don't see an R9.
No, I don't either.
Okay, that's it. That's the last page.
So it's
I'm
on
sorry,
there.
I'm
It's
seeing.
changing. It's under discussion.
So R9 is changing council member titles to gender neutral
Oh,
or discussion.
I didn't see that.
You have to go back to the top of the agenda. There's nothing written in the packet.
There's nothing written to this. This was referred by Alderman Fleming from the last meeting of the Rules Committee.
Yep. And it was really more of a, right, so we're talking about pay equity and all these things and making sure anyone feels open to run for office. And we are all aldermen, which we understand we're not all men. And I was watching a council meeting in another state and they had alderperson. And then another place had council member. So I tried to look this up. I'm not necessarily well-versed in the Illinois state statute. I did see our role referred to as aldermen throughout the statute, but I did not see something that said we have to be aldermen. So I was interested in kind of seeing if there was interest in changing our title to something that was non-gender specific. So those folks who maybe don't have a gender identity or whatever else can be something other than what their title says. I know on my campaign stuff last time I went by alderwoman, which I realized wasn't necessarily our legal term, but I am not a man, and I think if we want to be open to everyone, we should be mindful that everyone doesn't use the same gender pronouns. So I don't know if legally this is something we can do. I tried to look at it, Alex. I didn't have much luck.
I've never heard of any, because I know that some have, some have gone by alderwoman. I didn't think we had any restrictions or limitations on how we can refer to ourselves. So
I was told by Grant that wasn't our legal term. Because I asked about it when we got our name placards at the council when we first started.
Okay, Alderman Nguyen?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. This issue was raised by former Alderman Grover, and I don't remember all of the details of it, but there was research done by the legal department about whether we could be referred to as alderwomen. This was 10 years ago, so I've certainly been called alderperson by a number of people, but there is something in the state code that requires that we are aldermen. So if the legal department could just do a quick look on that, I agree with you. I think we should be able to be more neutral, but I think there was a barrier to it, and that was why the city council didn't act on it before.
Awesome. Yeah, please do. I mean, I would be disappointed if there were any restrictions on us going by our gender preference. I thought that I had every right to be alderwoman, have gone by alderman. So if we can get some feedback on that, thank you so much. If we could get some feedback on that and a memo on how we can formalize that option so that all gender identities feel welcome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we should, the city staff should be able to find that material. And if not, we could call up former Alderman Grover, because I think she has a vivid memory of it. Yeah.
I think a new memo, or just not even a memo, whatever it is, because as you said, it was 10 years ago. So hopefully our state has been more progressive in 10 years, but maybe not.
I hope so.
So, Madam Chair, members of the committee, it looks like a brief Google search, and I haven't had time to look into this too much. The city of Chicago, it looks like, looked into this recently when Mayor Lightfoot was elected. And it looks like there's something in the Illinois Municipal Code which sets the ground rules for municipalities in the state. And it specifies that an alderman is the only officially recognized title for the person holding that position. So apparently it is in the Illinois Municipal Code, and I can go ahead and confirm that, but I believe that that's where they're citing the law from it.
We can advocate with our representatives to change that.
There you go.
Yeah.
And also, is that something in our home rule municipality that we can govern locally?
I'll have to look into that.
If you could, so that we aren't waiting for the state's schedule and for them to prioritize something that we value, could you look and see what options we have locally?
Absolutely, Madam Chair, no problem.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Are there any items for communication? May we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved. Second.
Do we have to take a roll call vote on that?
Yes.
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 Okay.
Alderman Braithwaite,
Aye.
Alderman Nguyen,
Aye.
Alderman Wilson,
Aye.
Alderman Simmons,
Aye.
Alderman Sefferden,
Aye.
Alderman Ravel,
Aye.
Alderman Rainey,
Aye.
Alderman Fleming, Mayor Haggerty. I'm sorry.
Aye.
Awesome. Thank you.